Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're jumping into one of the biggest, most mind-bending topics out there, consciousness. It's a word we all use, we all think we know what it means, but what does it actually mean? Well, it turns out the answer isn't just one thing, and that's because we might be asking the wrong question from the get-go.
Okay, let's just dive right in. So what is consciousness? I mean, really, is it that little voice inside your head or the feeling of the sun on your skin? Maybe it's just the basic fact that you're awake right now and not asleep. The thing is, it can be all of those things. And that's exactly where all the confusion starts.
And this isn't some new 21st century problem. We're talking about a question that philosophers and thinkers have been wrestling with for millennia. The reason it feels so impossible, so slippery, is that for all that time, we've basically been trying to open a door that has a dozen different locks with just one single key.
So let's try to reframe this whole thing. The problem isn't that we've failed to find the answer. According to the research we're looking at today, the real problem is that we're trying to find one answer to what is actually a whole bunch of different questions all hiding under the same name.
And the source material gives us this really important clue. It says the word consciousness is heterogeneous. Now, I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but all it really means is that it's made up of a bunch of different distinct parts. It's not one single solid thing. It's more like a collection of ideas that we've all agreed to just, bundle together under this one label. And that insight leads us to a much, much better way to think about this. So forget about thinking of consciousness as some kind of box that everything has to fit inside perfectly. Instead, picture it more like a giant umbrella.
Right? An umbrella term. It's just a word or a phrase that covers a whole range of related ideas, not just one specific thing. Think about words like art or sports, right? There's no single definition that covers every single sport, but they're all related. Once you start seeing consciousness like that, the whole puzzle, well, it starts to look a lot less puzzling.
So underneath this big umbrella, our source material basically breaks things down into two main categories. First, you've got creature consciousness, which asks, is the organism as a whole conscious? And then you have state consciousness, which is about whether a specific mental state, like a thought or a feeling, is conscious. Let's dig into both of those. All right, first up, creature consciousness. This is the big picture question. It's when we ask things like, is a dog conscious? Or even, is a bee conscious? We're talking about the whole shebang, the entire creature.
But even within this one category, the word can mean a whole bunch of different things. For instance, it could just mean sentience, the basic ability to sense your environment and respond, kind of like how a plant turns to face the sun. Or it could mean wakefulness, which is really just the difference between being awake and being asleep. And then you have the really complex stuff like self-consciousness, that wild moment when you look in a mirror and realize, hey, that's me. Each of these is a totally different flavor of what we call creature consciousness.
And this idea is captured perfectly in this famous line from the philosopher Thomas Nagel. He asked if there is something that it is like to be a particular creature. I mean, what is it like to be a bat, seeing the world through sound, or a cat, or even another person? This question really gets right to the heart of what we mean by subjective first-person experience. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit. We've been looking at the whole creature. Now let's zoom way in and talk about state consciousness. This is all about the specific moments of our experience. What is it that makes a single thought or a feeling or a sensation a conscious one? And no surprise here, we find a whole spectrum of meanings all over again. A conscious state might be about qualia. That's the philosophical term for the unique, raw sensory feel of something. Think about the specific, undeniable taste of a fresh pineapple. That's qualia. Or a conscious state could be about access, meaning the information is available for you to talk about and use to guide what you do next. And then there's narrative consciousness, that ongoing story you tell yourself, that little inner monologue that's running right now. This brings up a really, really important distinction. Let's take an example. The raw feeling of the sun on your skin, that's what we call phenomenal consciousness. It's just the subjective experience itself, the what it's likeness of it all. But the moment that information becomes available for you to do something with it, like, it's hot, I should probably put on some sunscreen, well, that's access consciousness. See the difference? One is the raw feeling, and the other is what you can do with that information. Okay, so you might be thinking, why are we splitting all these hairs? Does this actually matter? And the answer is yes, absolutely.
Because once we stop trying to treat consciousness as this one single, mysterious thing, we can finally start asking much better, much more precise questions in our quest to understand the mind.
And this is where thinking about it this way becomes so incredibly useful. It helps us see how all these different scientists and philosophers can claim they're studying consciousness, but in reality, they're working on totally different questions. You could have one researcher trying to describe what subjective experience is like. Another one might be trying to figure out how a physical brain can possibly create these feelings. And a third might be asking the evolutionary question, why do we even have it at all? The key is, they're not necessarily disagreeing with each other. They're just working on different pieces of the same giant puzzle.
So here's the real takeaway. The fact that the word consciousness has all these different meanings, that's not a bug we need to fix, it's actually a feature. It gives us this incredible, diverse toolkit for digging into one of the most complex things in the entire universe. We don't need one master key. What we need is the whole toolbox.
And this all leaves us with a really fascinating and very, very modern question to chew on. As we build more and more advanced AI, which one of these dozen or so types of consciousness are we actually looking for? Or trying to create? Are we aiming for simple sentience or full-blown self-awareness? Is access consciousness enough, or do we need to crack that mysterious what-it's-like quality? Figuring this out isn't just some philosophical game. The answers we choose are literally going to shape the future we're all building, one line of code at a time.